Hello everyone. Just a couple minutes before we get started. So I will sit here and wait for you all to join me. Well, good afternoon. I was just thinking about you, Ron. Glad to see you. I haven't seen your name pop up in a while. Excellent. We have another minute or so before we get started. So I just invite you in the meantime to sit quietly and just assess how you're feeling at this time and begin with that breath in the nose and out the nose or the mouth. Welcome. I just saw somebody else popped up. Oh, no, that was a comment from Ron. Thank you. Great to see you. Funny how you think about people and then they just kind of pop up. So that's always great. I love that. That's just a nice confirmation. It's 12:01. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Of course, this is being recorded, so you can always reference back to it. I'm going to do a little bit of reading while you as students sit there and take it all in and breathe and just think about this Earth Day today. And the sun is shining, which is wonderful, and it's a little bit warmer. So that's always a bonus. So again, I invite you to either sit in a chair or you can sit comfortably on your mat or any other surface that feels good for you right at this time. And I'll invite you to just drop into your breath. Maybe that breath is starting right now in the nose and out the mouth. Or perhaps you want to connect with that Ujjayi breath, which is the breath that we connect with the earth element and the in-between times of the solstices, the equinoxes, and about the 18 to 20 days before and after the actual solstice or equinox does happen. So we're going to do a little bit of an earth practice today. And again, like I said, I'm going to begin with a little bit of reading, and it's for your information, which I think you may find very interesting. And again, you can always reference this back through this recording. So you know that I teach the energy medicine yoga related to the 5 elements in ancient Chinese medicine. Those elements are reflected through seasons and emotions and so many things in life. So I'm just going to read a little bit about that so I can maybe bring some things together for you so it helps to make sense. So this book, Lauren Walker, who was my teacher, the name of it, Energy Medicine Yoga Prescription, very good book. kind of goes hand in hand with her first book, so it's not always the easiest to understand if you're not following along and haven't done some of the trainings. But this book is great, and it's got a lot of good references. This next article I'm going to read, Dr. Candace Pert articulates the power of suppressing and releasing emotions in her book, Molecules of Emotions. Emotions are what unite the mind and the body. Anger, fear, and sadness, the so-called negative emotions, are as healthy as peace, courage, and joy. To repress these emotions and not let them flow freely is to set up a disintegrity in the system, causing it to act at cross purposes rather than as a unified whole. The stress this creates, which takes the form of blockages and insufficient flow of peptide signals to maintain function at the cellular level, is what sets up the weakened conditions that can lead to disease. And then just a very brief discussion or description of the theory of the 5 elements. The theory of the 5 elements is that our bodies and our world have developed from the same star stuff, the elements we find around us. These elements form an intricate dance of give and take, movement and stillness, balance and imbalance. They feed each other and together govern all the biological and emotional systems of the body. This theory is based on natural cycles and relationships in the environment and within ourselves. It teaches us, again, about deep listening, paying attention, and tuning in. And as you continue to sit there and breathe, I'll read one more thing and then just show you a little chart. I'll bring it up to the screen so you can see it a little bit better. So continuing with your breath and just kind of assessing how you're feeling and your emotions today. In the same way that the elements work with the cycles of the seasons, they work with the cycles of our emotions. Our emotions transition in a similar way. Fear often transmutes into anger and then into anxiety. From there, we can go into self-lacerating reaction, where we forget ourselves and start to care too much about everyone else in a situation. And then we move into grief. It is a familiar and repeatable challenge. One of the biggest hurdles to overcome is our own resistance to feeling emotions. Emotions can be very scary or painful or uncomfortable. We feel ashamed or afraid, and we don't want to feel that way. Or we see how we are punishing someone by being emotionally distant or cruel. And then we have to look more deeply at our own behavior and feel compassion for ourselves, even when we aren't at our best. Humbling. We avoid our feelings so much that they literally cause us to become sick. In order to deeply heal, we have to be willing to step into the fear of our own feelings and let that feeling release itself as raw energy. Scary, I know. That is the scary part. We fear that the rage, grief, or anger will last forever and we will never get away from it. But the truth is, emotion is just energy. And when we remove the story, the energy will run down in a finite amount of time. Once the raw energy of the emotion releases, it's gone. It's when we don't release the emotion that it continues to fuel the difficult and detrimental story it hatched from and then can often become a physical illness. So those are just words and information to integrate. You can rewind and listen to them again. But as I was planning this class and writing it last night and going back to some of my readings, these really jumped out, and I thought they were very valid for Earth Day today. And just realizing how much our emotions play in our story of life. So as we continue to breathe, let's do our in the nose and out the mouth, at least for now, while we go through our wake up. And you can be seated or you can stand up. I invite you to do what your body is asking you to do today, or what maybe you just feel drawn to do today. So breathing in the nose, out the mouth. Move my glasses for now. Hopefully I don't sit on them. And let's find the pads of our fingers or the notched finger and thumb. Begin to massage, tap our thumb. Breath flowing. Notice if there's any soreness in any of these areas. And if so, and you know of no underlying condition, go ahead and massage a little more deeply. Just getting that lymph moving. Remember, lymph does not have its own pump. So through exercise or manipulation, we can move that lymph out into our venous supply to move out of our bodies through elimination. Shake that off. Thymus. This is another great one. This brings in those T cells, our immune cells that we need to recruit when we're feeling bad, or just every day to continue to call them up and say, hey, I need you here. Get that shot of vitamin C. Shake that off. Come to your side seams, right beneath the breasts, right at the rib cage, spleen points. Think of your digestion and your metabolizing, your thoughts, good or bad. Just moving those through. Remember, these are called neurolymphatic points. Or beginning and end points of meridians here. Neurolymphatics are just a little bit different, and I apologize for confusing you there. Shake off the hands. Come to the cheekbones. Tap. Thumb for massage. This is our beginning point of our stomach meridian. That is associated with the earth element. Grounding. And if at all you could get outside today, maybe barefoot for a few moments and walk around on that grass called earthing. It's a thing. The earth wants you to walk on her with your bare feet. It's an exchange of polarities, of energy. Remember, Einstein said, energy is all there is. Let's continue with our breath. Integrate those 4 thumbs. Prepare to do our homolateral 3 to 4 rounds here. And then we'll dust off, cross over. Now, I like to do this a total of 12 times on each side. Sometimes a little more, maybe sometimes a little less. An alternate is crossing over from one shoulder to the opposite hip. See how this crosses the energy? And breathe. You can do this 2 to 3 times at a go, just to bring your energy up. Sometimes our patterns get stuck in that homolateral or 2-sided state, so we have to work to get them back to crossing over to bring that energy back up to 100%. Hands hover over the pubic bone, maybe setting an intention as you zip up, seal in your energetic field, and sweep it out into your own auric field. Zip up and exhale out. And lastly, our hook up. Confidence, setting our energetic spine. This is always a good reminder for engaging through the core. Draw that belly button in and up. And then shake that off. Let's stand with the feet just about hip width apart. You can also do this seated. Place your hands on your thighs. And we'll just slide the hands up. Bring them to heart center. And then bend the knees. Kind of sit back in that chair. Make sure the knees aren't past your toes. And then come into your heaven connecting earth. Nice opening side stretch. Helps bring fresh energy to our joints. More flexibility into our bodies. After this period of cold, we're warming ourselves, breathing and opening for nicer, warmer weather ahead. Let's do one more round. Now you can change up your breath if you like to in the nose and out the nose. Maybe try that Ujjayi breath, or sometimes what's called that ocean breath. You're drawing in through the nose and exhaling out through the nose like you're fogging a mirror. So it comes deep from that glottis in the back of the throat. Draws up from the diaphragm all the way in, cycles through. And staying with kind of the 5 elements, we are going to go review through those breathing sounds and also the postures for the seasons. So the breath for our season of winter, and everything starts in water. Season of winter is associated with the element of water, and the breath is as if blowing out a candle. Blowing out the candle is also the name of the peak pose for winter. Now enter spring, where we are right now, and the element of wood. Think of the wood breaking through, the plant breaking through the earth in spring. And so, of course, the season, spring, element is wood. The sound is shh. Expelling the venom, getting rid of anything that is no longer serving us within our own personal realm. Also the name of the peak pose for spring. Then we enter into summer, the heat, the fire. Of course, the element is fire. The sound is bringing down the flame is that sound, and peak pose for summer. And we enter earth. Of course, the earth comes in 4 times a year through the solstices and the equinoxes. And I just take my hands and do this because that's what I am just guided to do when I talk about the earth energy. So that is the cradling the baby, taking care of oneself, the Ujjayi breath in the nose, out the nose. And so just think about that. Practice that. I'll try and make some noise here so you can hear my breath. Ujjayi breath, perhaps if you're in a room full of people practicing yoga and they're doing the Ujjayi breath, you may hear the person next to you, but not the person across the room. And then finally, the sound for autumn is S, and the element is metal, and the pose is human touching divine. Now there are also emotions that are associated with all those. If I pile all those on at the same time, I'll only catch a little bit. So when we're going through the poses, which we will do in just a few moments, I will talk about the emotions that are associated with those seasons and the sounds, so not as to confuse. So as we continue here, let's just roll the shoulders up, back, and down. We can even have a seat. Either I just did it, I sat on my glasses and I went through that. We will either sit in our chair or on our mats. Sit back with the breath. And let's roll the shoulders up toward our ears, back and down. Again, really squeeze the shoulders up. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then draw them back so they're coming together toward each other. And then we're drawing that down once again. Look one direction and nod the head. Breathing in your comfortable breathing pattern here. And then coming back center and taking it to the other side. Nod the head. Come back center. Cross one hand over the opposite leg. Lift this opposite arm. Take it back. Turn the palm up. Now the arm may be back, or you may reach it a little higher and just kind of lean away from that. Let that arm fall back into gravity and maybe nod the head just a little bit more. Breathing all the while. And bring that back in. Switch sides. Bring that arm back. Now, if that's uncomfortable, you can always bend the elbow and support your shoulder by lifting it up. Do what you need to adapt, always taking care. And then just lean a little bit this way, perhaps reaching that arm up if that's available. Continuing to breathe. And release. Roll shoulders. Sweep the arms open and lift your heart center. Just feel the sun shining on your heart light. Charging that up. Breathing that in. And then weave. We'll come into forward fold here. Inhale to half lift. Exhale, sinking more deeply. And then slowly, option to trace the spleen meridian here. Let's place our fingers over the big toe on the arch side, right over that big toenail. Trace along, the inside of the arch, behind the ankle bone, up the inseams. If you have seams on your pants, just the middle, inside the groin, and then come a little wider at your torso, along the sides, breaths almost to the top of the shoulders and back down. Give those a buzz. Spleen is one of the meridians associated with the earth element. The other one is stomach. So we will move through our 5-element flow slowly. We'll move through it a total of 3 times, but I'm going to do it very slowly and break it down and give you options. So, and you can sit on the chair if need be. Do what you need to do for yourself, and there's no wrong. It is your intention. Just remember that. So, the first one, we start very small. We're in water. Everything begins in water. So, if squat pose is in your practice, you can go ahead and take a blanket beneath the heels. You can also just sit in the chair, or we can lie back onto our back sides and hug our knees into our chest. That's doable for many of us. So whichever position you choose and that's available today, please take that. So here we'll sit or lie on our backs and breathe that, blowing out the candle, thinking about being in the dark. Many of us in the dark are in fear. So fear in the dark, transforming that emotion into courage of going through the darkness, moving through the fear, and finding the courage to do so. So we've got the balancing and challenging emotions there. As we drop our chin to our chest, we inhale through the nose, lift the head up, and then blow out the candle. Drop the chin once again. Inhale in the courage. Blowing out that candle. The fear may be there, but we are moving through it. We have the courage. We'll do this one more time. Drop the chin. And so from here, if we're on our back sides, we'll move to all fours to come up to kind of a chair. If we're on our chair, we'll come up with some soft knees to move from the season of winter, the element of water, into the season of spring, to the element of wood, and expelling the venom. Anger is the challenging emotion. Assertiveness, or I can't even think of the word. Assertiveness is the balancing emotion after you move through the anger. So with this, we come into soft knees, hinge over. Think about this garden. Think about your garden in spring. Maybe there are a lot of weeds there. We're going to pick those, pull them up, bring them up with our deep inhale, and then release, expel the venom. Once again, dig up the rest of those thoughts, those things that are no longer serving us, that we have in our garden that we no longer need. Breathe. Pull it up. Get rid of it. Once again, really dig deep. Go for that taproot. We're pulling that up. Really drawing it overhead. Release it to be neutralized. Bringing our confidence levels up through that assertive behavior. One last time, very intentionally, slowly, pick up anything that you may have missed. Draw it up. And slowly, breathe. Now we move to that Ujjayi breath. In the season of summer, the element of fire. Bringing down the flame. Sometimes that anger moves, is not resolved, and moves into anxiety, which is heightened. So in order to calm that down, we want to bring down the flame. We're standing tall. We're breathing out the mouth. Bringing down the flame, turn the palms outward. Deep inhale through the nose, tent the fingers and the thumb. Just tap the thumbs down the crown of the head. And then sweep them around. Tap between the brows. Once again, sweep around. Shine your heart light. And again, sweep around. Thumbs just above the navel. Rest the hands on the belly. Continue for 2 to 3 more deep breaths. Seating the fire in the belly where it needs to be and wants to be seated. So it can burn at that even keel, that even pace. When you're complete, sweep off the outsides of the legs, off the picky toe and shake it off. Opportunity to either weave or trace spleen meridian as we come up. Shake off the hands. And then let's just hold on to our spleen points. One here, one here. Moving in to cradling the baby. Self-care. Earth element, the solstices and equinoxes. The emotions are worry and overcompassion being the challenging emotions. Finding our self-compassion and self-care through the balance of these emotions. Cradling the baby is the name of the pose, the Ujjayi Breath. Is what we practice for our earth element. Now, if that's not for you, feel free to breathe in through the nose and out the mouth. And after a few breaths there, reach up to the heavenlies for anything you may need, pulling down. And then bring the palms together, the thumbs between the brows, and trace the thumbs over your eyebrows, stopping right at your temples. Gently place fingers on the forehead, comb gently, and stop right here at your temples. Smooth gently behind the ears, down the sides of the neck. Maybe let your fingers hang on your shoulders for a moment. Take a breath. And then sweep down the front of the body, off the sides, off the pinky toes. Now you can either sit, or if available, you can bend your knees, bring the hands beneath the feet. We're covering some spleen points here. And if available, you can drop the bum down, lift up for a breath, have our fingers beneath our insides of our big toes, if possible. Otherwise, we can do one here, 2 to 3 breaths, and then the other. You can also do this seated on your mat. Again, this is not wrong. There's no wrong here. And when we feel complete, we'll trace our spleen meridian coming up to complete cradling the baby, posture for the earth element, shaking that off. Moving into the 5th element, metal, end of season, autumn, the dying out of the leaves, and everything else. The emotions are grief and transforming in letting go. That can take a long time for a lot of us, many times. Letting go or the acceptance of what is. Think about the last leaves falling from the tree, and sometimes that gives us grief. That's just kind of a symbolic analogy. Many of us have lots of things that display grief in our lives. So as we think about this, human touching divine, and the breath is so with the hands, the palms open, right about hip level. We'll inhale, lift the heart center, open the palms. And then as we bring the hands toward each other to form an incomplete circle, think of all that we love, we're holding so dear. We open up again and expand all that we love to our nation, to our world. Drawing all that again to the incomplete circle, hugging it in. Maybe think about wrapping your arms around the trunk of a tree. And then opening up to all there is, something bigger, to God, faith, to whatever you have. Releasing all the problems to God, to that higher being. This time bringing the hands together, one on top of the other. Crossing wrists, resting the hands. So our hands are resting over some lung points, right here and right here. Lungs, along with large intestine, are the meridians or the organs that are represented by the season of autumn. So thinking about those sounds that we just went through and those poses, maybe one resonated with you more than another. we all have a little bit of essence of each of these elements within us. There's also your typical dominant one that you're born with. And if anybody's interested in that, you can ask me more on Facebook, on our page, and I can send you a little thing to complete. So we're going to go through that a couple more times. We went through that very slowly. I'll go through it a little bit more quickly the second time and as well as the third time. So however you begin in water in winter with your blowing out the candle, maybe it's a squat pose, maybe it's just seated. So we begin, head down, inhale, blowing out the candle, finding the courage to move through the darkness, through the fear of the darkness. 3 times here. And as we slowly rise up to the season of spring, and sometimes that fear does get stuck, creating anger within our bodies. So we're drawing up any of that stuck energy. Inhale and expel the venom. Shh. Release. Dig up those weeds. Dig up those dark thoughts. Shh. Expel them out. Flick them off. Get rid of that energy. Continue to dig up. Pulling. Going for that deep taproot. Shh. And one more time, slowly and very intentionally, picking up any of the pieces you may have left. Breathing it in. One final expel. Maybe tracing the spleen meridian. Move into that HA, bringing down the flame, releasing any anxiety, finding joy and inspiration, the balancing emotions for fire. Drop the thumbs down to the crown. Sweep around, come to the forehead. Breathing out any anxiety. Creating space for joy and inspiration to live and to thrive. Sweeping the hands out. Thumbs above the navel this time. Flattening palms on our belly. Taking a couple breaths, seating the fire here. And then slowly sweeping off the outer seams of the legs, off the pinky toe, shake it off. Trace spleen or weave the arms slowly as you come up. And then place the hands on these spleen points, cradling the baby. Ujjayi breath, if that is in your practice. Otherwise, you're in the nose, out the mouth. Remember that Ujjayi breath in the nose. And then you're blowing out through the nose. It's as if you're fogging a mirror through closed lips. Cradling the baby, self-care, compassion for self versus over-worry and over-compassion. reaching up, pulling down what we may need from the heavenlies. Place those hands, the thumbs between the brows. Slowly trace the thumbs over eyebrows. Curl the fingers around, thumbs resting on our temples. Cross, pause here at the temples. Smooth behind the ears, and perhaps give yourselves a little squeeze on the shoulders. Then bring the hands down the front of the body, off the sides. Now either sitting or from this chair position, place the hands beneath that big toe side, arch side, and pulse beneath the feet. Bum comes down, take a breath. Bum comes down again. And one last time. Trace, spleen, or weave the arms up. Shake it out, going into the season of autumn and the element of metal. Sound. Grief. Moving into letting go, acceptance of what is. Opening up, taking all that we love into our arms. Bring that to the incomplete circle. Open up to something bigger. Human touching divine, opening up to all there is in the heavenlies, releasing anything we can't take care of, all the problems. This time, bringing the fingers together, tops of the arms. From the season of autumn, and we go back to where everything begins again, in water. One more time, blowing out the candle. Transforming fear into courage. Spring, wood, expelling the venom. Transforming anger into confidence and assertiveness. Releasing all that no longer serves us. Digging up those deepest, darkest thoughts of ourselves that are not serving us. One last time, slowly, intentionally. Moving into summer, fire. Bringing down the flame, releasing the anxiety. Bringing joy and inspiration. Sweep hands around, thumbs to between the brows. Thumbs just above our belly button. Seat the fire. Sweep off pinky toes. Shake off. Trace spleen. Wrap, cradling the baby. Ujjayi breath, or in the nose, out the mouth. Reaching down from the heavenlies. Gathering that energy. Place the thumbs in between the brows. Over the eyebrows. Across the forehead. Rest at the temples. Smooth behind the ears. Hang off the shoulders. Breathe. Smooth down the front of the body. Hands go to beneath the feet, and you can do this one at a time. 3 deep breaths. Boop. Down with the breath. Bend the knees. After 3 breaths. Trace spleen meridian as we come up. Remember, tracing spleen meridian helps keep our energies, spleen running smoothly. And finally, autumn. Human touching divine. Grief. Moving into acceptance. Drawing it all in, all that we love. Opening up, wider expanse here. And to the biggest, human touching divine. Shake that off. So that is the 5-element flow. We went through that 3 times. And again, you can always reference this class. Stop it and look back to if you missed something. If you have questions, you can always ask me on our Facebook page. And I will be happy to address any of those. So let's kind of finish out today with a couple balance poses. Of course, we want to bring the tree into it. So either having a wall or a piece of furniture or a chair here. Let's stand here and come into a tree pose. So you can have your toe down on the earth, on the floor, above or below the knee, just not on the knee. Maybe the hands to heart center. Knowing when you have something mentally to place your hand on or to lean up against, it gives us a little bit more strength. Breathing here. And then release, shaking it out. Other side. Placing one foot somewhere above or below the knee, or just simply using that toe as a kickstand. And cinch in the opposite hip. Maybe bringing the hands center, shining your heart light. Breathing, maybe using one of those breath patterns or sounds through the 5 elements that we just practiced. I invite you to go through all the sounds and see what one may resonate with you at any given time. And then release. I'm going to do a back scratch test here. So if you have some sort of tie or strap, you can take that to the side, sweep that overhead, sweep the opposite hand behind, and just walk the fingers toward each other. They may or may not touch. It does not matter. But think about opening up here. If you are trying so hard that you're kind of curling over, stand up tall, give yourself some space, make sure the crown of your head is reaching tall. You always want to be standing tall in our postures. Breathe deeply, in the nose, out the nose or the mouth. And then release, roll the shoulders, and then we'll take the other side. Sweep overhead, and once again, walking the hands toward each other. Again, there may or may not touch, but we are working toward getting a little further or a little closer toward the other hand. Finding that opening, that's the biggest thing about this practice, this posture. Finding the opening. And thinking about the 5 elements, we start in very small and or work toward very open postures. Start very small and slowly work to open. And then release, roll these shoulders. Now I invite you to get quiet, either sit in your chair or on your mat, on the floor, maybe crossing one ankle over the other just above the knee. If you're on a chair, you can sit like so. Sit up tall. Hinge forward. Breathe. 3 to 5 deep breaths here. Think about leading with the navel. And come up when you feel complete. Switching sides. Notice any difference from one side to the next. seated or lying down, coming into your resting position, using whatever props you have handy, whatever makes you feel comfortable. And just come to a place of relaxation. Deep breathing, maybe making one of those sounds, releasing through the sound. Your Shavasana. Bringing awareness back to your fingers and your toes, perhaps fluttering the eyelids. And then rolling to one side to join me in seated as you're ready. I thank you all for joining me for this practice today, and have a wonderful rest of your Earth Day. Namaste. Take care, everybody.